Hello and welcome back to I Am Woman. Today, we're actually going to go into some theory about what shadows are, what patterns are, what triggers are, and just start to really understand why we behave the way that we do in relationships and after relationships and like how we get there. So, we'll just jump straight into it. What is shadow work? So, shadow work is the whole basis of what this program is built upon, what I do in my work with clients. And it's just about uncovering the hidden parts of yourself. So, these are the parts that we've suppressed, rejected, or hidden because they felt wrong or unsafe. And usually these are made when we're a child. And they can be made when we're in our teenage years. It's usually a really common place that shadows are formed because that's when we're trying to figure out who we are. And then we enter our 20s where we're soul searching. We're really trying to find that adult version of us. And then they can also be created at any other time in our life. So we could be 50 and we could create some shadows because we want to suppress that part of ourselves as a reaction to pain, a reaction to rejection. There's lots of different ways that shadows are created. Now, one thing that I want to be very clear on is your shadows aren't bad. They're just parts of you that you haven't fully accepted, and that is sometimes because society isn't accepting them. Ignoring your shadows is what can lead to self-sabotage, people pleasing, repeating unhealthy patterns. So this is usually where we talk about like going for the same guy over and over again. That can be something to do with your shadow. Now, when we talk about them being formed at different phases of your life, sometimes, and for me, the fear of being too much was very reiterated when I was younger. So I was loud, I was very like unapologetic in like what I would say. I was very confident, or like what that external factor of confident means. And I was constantly told, like, calm down, like, be quiet, you don't need to be so loud. And then over time, what that did is actually like make me shrink myself in friendships, at school, at uni. And I started to dull that part of me because I was like, oh, okay, it is bad to be loud. It is bad to be too much. And therefore, I went the other way. I've suppressed it. I'm rejecting that part of me. And it's only recently that I have found, like, oh, I can still be loud. I can still be all these things, but there's just ways to go around it. And there's ways to make sure those boundaries are in place and I'm respecting other people's boundaries as well. A big one that a lot of women or like society in general seem to get from unpresent parents is the fear of abandonment. So if you were younger and your parents weren't very present or they would kind of push you to the side, that kind of teaches you that you aren't worthy of attention, you aren't worthy of a healthy relationship. And so then you actually gravitate closer to people in your later years and you actually cling to unhealthy connections. So if someone is pushing you away, you draw closer because you're like, oh, I don't want to feel abandoned again. The next that I'll talk about is fear of rejection. So, fear of rejection, I feel like through everyone's life, you will go through a phase of fear of rejection. And that's because, even from being in the playground at school, like sometimes we are rejected by friends at such a young age. And that teaches us that we need to be different, that we need to over explain, that we need to people please or adjust ourselves so that we are liked. And then that can flow into later years where we could be in a relationship and we people please because we're so scared that they're going to reject us for who we are. And we don't want that feeling. No one wants that feeling. And so we'll just self-sacrifice, we'll push our boundaries to the side and we will people please. Women as a whole do this in so many different ways, even in parenting, like in friendships, and definitely in relationships, especially in the work that I do. I talk with a lot of women who have people please in their relationships, even when there's domestic violence involved, when there's, cheating and infidelity. I did it as well. Like you just are so scared of being rejected or abandoned that you do that. Fear of stability, feeling boring. So this is a really interesting one because if you have grown up in a trauma, a big traumatic childhood where you were chasing validation from, say, a male like your father or your mother, and that's a mother wound there, you may then enter your adult years and actually not want to be with what we'd call a green flag because it feels so unusual to you. It actually feels unsafe to you. So you keep going for the chaos. You keep going for those red flags because that feels comfortable to you. You want to stay in your comfort zone. So that's why you keep going there. I want you to ask yourself these two questions. And if you have your journal around, just press pause on this so that you can spend some time reflecting. But what parts of yourself have you been rejecting or hiding? What parts of yourself have you been rejecting or hiding? Is it you feel like you can't use your voice, so therefore you don't? When was the first time you felt like you had to shrink yourself for love or validation? And this can feel uncomfortable, and that's so normal too. Remember, at any time you can pause and you can go back to that safe space, visualization to really regulate your body. But just spending a moment thinking about, okay, when did I people please? When did I draw closer to someone when they were pulling away? And we'll get more into like trauma, bonds, and attachment styles later on. But just right now, what comes to mind? If you think of your last relationship, when things started to go sour, what was your reaction? And what did you not do that you internally really wanted to do, but you stopped yourself? So just press pause now, really spend some time doing that, and then come back. Okay, so as I was saying before, how are shadows created? Shadows are created when a part of you was shamed, ignored, or suppressed. If you were told as a child that crying was weak, you might now struggle to express emotions. And this happens a lot with men because when we're younger, we are told, or society tells boys, don't be a pussy, don't be a girl, don't be a sook. And those characteristics are like more feminine characteristics. And so then as men get older, they struggle to express their emotions. And that's when a lot of men do turn to punching drywall or, domestic violence becomes a thing because they don't know how to let their emotions out. They keep it all in because it's weak to let it out. And what I'm actually finding working with a lot of like single mothers is we actually take on so much of that masculine side where we don't want to break down, where we think if we break down, we are weak. We don't want our children to see that. And it's also like going to just like consume us, which isn't the case. If you were made to feel guilty for wanting attention when you were younger, you might now fear being seen. And I'm really conscious of this with my stepson because he is very theatrical. He loves attention. He'll bounce around and he'll try and get my attention or his dad's attention all the time, which is so fine. Like he's a child. And I'm just trying to be so mindful of that because when I was younger, I was told to calm down. I was told to be quiet. I was told I didn't need to be so loud. So if this resonates with you, just know that that's so normal. And like our parents' generation didn't know this. And like, that's okay. We know this now. And it kind of just helps us feel okay with why we don't want to be seen now. If love in your past was unpredictable, you might now feel safest in chaos. So this is how I was talking about like chasing emotionally unavailable people because that feels safe, that feels familiar. And going for those green flags doesn't feel familiar. It doesn't feel safe. And so we push away like the vanilla guys and we think that like, ugh, they're not for us. And then we go back to the like fuckboy charmers. And we've all done it. Let's just be so for real. Okay. Reflections. So again, pulling out your journal, pause to really reflect on these. I want you to ask yourself, what's one way you act today that might have started as a way to protect yourself in the past? Do you stop yourself from crying? Do you stop yourself from being angry? Do you stop yourself from feeling joy? Because there's some kind of shame attached to that. And what was a message you were given about emotions, love, or self-worth as a child? Did you have to earn love as a child? Did you have to prove yourself? Did you have to build your own self-worth? Was there a parent that reminded you of your worth, or did you lack that? And emotions, were you told, don't cry, don't be dramatic? I know I was told that, and it's a tough reality check when you're older. Just press pause now and just spend a little bit of time jotting it down. Don't overthink it, just whatever comes to mind, and then come back.